All right, let's talk about something. What if you could give your AI coding assistant, like, a perfect memory? I'm talking about a simple, but honestly, game-changing idea. We're going to explore the single file that can just end the frustration of repeating yourself over and over and turn your AI into a true expert on your project. Let's get right into it. You know that feeling, right? Where you're explaining the same project rules, the same code styles, the same commands again and again to your AI? Well, trust me, you are definitely not alone. It's gotta be one of the biggest headaches for developers right now. So here's the real problem, the heart of it. Every single time you start a new chat, your AI is basically starting from scratch. It's a total blank slate. It has zero memory of your last conversation, and more importantly, it has no clue about your project's specific needs. And this, well, you could call it AI amnesia, right? It leads to this whole laundry list of frustrations we all know too well. It forgets you like named exports, it has no idea how to run your tests, and it's totally clueless about that weird little workaround in the off module you literally just explained yesterday. So what happens? You end up wasting so much time either repeating yourself or, even worse, fixing code that completely ignores all the rules you've set up for your project. But what if there was a way? What if we could give our AI a permanent memory for each and every project? A way to just, upload all that crucial context right at the beginning so it's ready to go from prompt one. Well, it turns out the solution is surprisingly simple. It is called CLAUDE.md. Seriously, think of it like a pre-flate checklist for your AI. It is just a simple markdown file that Claude automatically reads at the start of every session. It gives it all those project-specific instructions it needs right off the bat. It's basically the long-term memory you've always wished it had. Okay, so how do you actually make one of these? Well, this is the best part. You can get started in, and I mean this, literally seconds. Let's walk through building our first one right now. The absolute fastest way is just to run the /init command right there in your project folder. Claude will scan your code and whip up a starter claude.md file for you. Now listen up, because this is the most important part. Your first move should be to delete. Delete everything that isn't absolutely essential. It's so much easier to trim down a file it generates than to build one from a blank page. And this is how you keep your instructions lean and super effective. So where do you put this file? You've got a few options. The most common spot, and what I'd recommend, is the project root. That way, your entire team is working from the same playbook. You can also tuck it away in a .claude subdirectory if you like to keep things tidy. For rules that apply to all your projects, you can put one in your user directory. And for your own personal tweaks, you can create a claude.local.md. Just, and this is important, make sure you add that one to your .gitignore file. Okay, quick pro tip here. This one will save you a major headache later. The file name is case sensitive. It has to be CLAUDE.md, all caps, CLAUDE.md. It's such a simple mistake to make, but if you get it wrong, Claude just won't see the file at all. So let's look at a real-world example. This is for a Next.js project, and it's a perfect illustration of what a great claude.md file looks like. See how clear and actionable everything is? It kicks off with a simple project description. Then it gets into specific code style rules, lists the exact commands for testing and building. It even calls out those super important gotchas like never commit.env files. This is exactly the kind of specific, organized info an AI can really sink its teeth into. All right, so how long should this file be? Is there a limit? Well, the general rule of thumb is to keep it under 300 lines, but honestly, shorter is almost always better. You have to remember, every single line in this file is competing for the AI's attention, so you gotta make sure each instruction really earns its spot. Okay, so once you've got the basics down, you can start using some more advanced techniques to keep your instructions neat and tidy, especially as your projects get bigger. Let's look at how to scale this whole thing up. The number one most powerful tool you have here is the @import syntax. This lets you reference other files. And what that means is you can keep your main claude.md file super lean and focused while just pointing to other documents for all the nitty-gritty details. So, for example, your main file might just have one little line that says, hey, for CSS stuff, look at @docs/styleguide.md. Then, when Claude needs to know about your CSS conventions, it just pulls in the content from that separate file right when it needs it. This is perfect for offloading things like detailed API patterns, those long style guides, or even just your project's main README file. Now, for bigger teams, you can take this even one step further. You can create a special directory called .claude/rules/. Here's the magic. Any Markdown file you drop into this folder gets loaded automatically. No imports needed at all. And this is just fantastic for collaboration. The front-end team can own their code.style.md, the security team can maintain a security.md, and nobody's stepping on each other's toes in one giant file. No more merge conflicts. All right, this next part might be the single most important idea to really get. Your CLAUDE.md file, it shouldn't be static. This is not a write it once and forget about it kind of thing. It needs to be a living, breathing document that evolves right alongside your project. The whole key here is getting into the right mindset. On one hand, you have the set and forget approach, which is wrong. On the other, you have the living document approach. You want to be updating it organically as you work. It should become this treasure chest that captures your team's knowledge over time, evolving with every new feature, with every little refactor. And this quote just nails the ideal workflow perfectly. When a PR reveals a convention that wasn't documented, add it to CLAUDE.md. The mistake won't repeat. See? That's your trigger. A code review shows you something new. That's your signal to add it to the file. It creates this amazing feedback loop where real-world coding improves the AI's instructions so that mistake never, ever happens again. And hey, for those of you who want to get really fancy, you can even automate this whole process. There's a GitHub action where you can tag Claude right in a PR comment and just tell it what to add to the file. It is an unbelievably seamless way to keep your project's knowledge base totally up to date. So, let's wrap up with a few quick tips for keeping this file in top shape. First, add new instructions as you go. Don't wait. Second, every now and then, ask Claude to review the file for you and suggest ways to make it better. Third, go easy on words like important. Save them for the rules that are truly, absolutely critical. And finally, be ruthless about deleting old instructions. If it's not relevant anymore, get rid of it. Keep it clean. Okay, let's do a quick recap of the best practices we've talked about. Number 1, open with a simple one-line explainer of what the project is. 2, make your code style rules super specific and actionable. 3, include all your key commands, test, build, lint, all that good stuff. 4, document all those weird project gotchas to save everyone a headache. 5, keep the main file short and sweet by using imports for the details. And maybe most importantly of all, update it constantly based on what you learned from code reviews. And really, that's the bottom line here. It's one file, it's a few minutes of setup, but the return you get on that tiny investment, it's massive. We're talking about saving countless hours of frustration, of repetition, and of fixing silly bugs over the entire life of your projects. So as we wrap this up, I've got just one last question for you. Now that you know how to give your AI a perfect memory for your project, what's the very first rule you're going to teach it? Think about it. Thanks for tuning in.